Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk to you about nerd news that has happened over the past week since our last show last Tuesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor in chief of Nerd Caliber. I'm called First Person Shooter on Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer, a burly adopter on Mastodon and probably some other social media platforms that I keep forgetting about. And before we get into tonight's show, there's an awful lot of topics. This will probably be a longer one, although a lot of them don't have a lot of details. So, I don't know. We may get out of this in 40-45 minutes, a little bit longer than a typical one. If you are in the chat on YouTube and you want to express your opinion about anything that we're talking about any of the topics we have here, please feel free. We do love to have that interactivity. If you want to express your opinion about my opinion on any of the thing we're talking about, go right ahead. I'd love to hear that as well. So that being said, let's jump right into our very first topic. And it sadly is a remembrance of the artist John Romita Sr. Pardon me, who last week passed away at the age of 93 in his home in Long Island. News was announced by his son, also the artist John Romita Jr. And this is very sad news for me in particular. John Romita Sr. was the artist on Spider-Man when I first discovered Spider-Man. And pretty much first discovered comics. Doctor Strange was the first one I read. Spider-Man was probably the second. So he started his career as a comic book artist years and years before he took over Spider-Man in 1966, right from Steve Ditko, right after Ditko left Marvel because of Stan Lee. And he had been working apparently for both the predecessors of Marvel, or predecessor of Marvel and of DC, Timely and National, respectively, for like 15 years prior to getting that full-time gig on Spider-Man. Mostly doing romance comics, of all things, which actually worked really well for the direction Spider-Man was going in. So he took over Spider-Man in 66 with, really just sort of mildly heroic pose, heroic figure characters, a little bit more so than Ditko, whose characters were really grounded and human, and often just thin. He gave Spider-Man a little bit more muscularity, but not a lot until later on. As Parker matured in the comics, Romita Sr.'s art sort of, moved him up a little bit in the buff scale. But this is a really typical example of, a cover, a Romita Sr. cover from, Amazing Spider-Man. He would then go on to pretty much define the look of almost everything related to Spider-Man going forward. He helped create the look of the Punisher. In fact, he created the look of the Punisher, who was a Spider-Man villain, as you can see here. He created the look of Kingpin. He created the look of Mary Jane Watson. And this was after he had stopped being the regular artist on Amazing Spider-Man or on any title and became the art director of Marvel. That happened in 1972. This is from the wedding issue of 1987. They brought Romita Sr. back to actually draw that entire issue. He is known for creating the look of Rhino, Gwen Stacy. He drew, of course, the death of Gwen Stacy, and then its aftermath. This is the cover for the issue Spider-Man No More, considered to be one of the all-time classic Spider-Man comics, or comics in general. And this is, that isn't it? This is the big splash page that has been replicated in the movies and so on, where where Peter gives up the Spider-Man persona because of what it has cost him. He's, and you can see in this image, or also, in the wedding image, his fallback on romance comics. This is a very striking, emotional kind of moment. The kind of thing that you would learn how to draw if you were drawing comics about people who are being rejected in tragic love relationships. He went on to establish what something that I didn't really realize had an official title until just reading this article. It's not really his obit. This article in Hollywood Reporter. Once he became the art director, he established a group called Romita's Raiders, which were in-house artists, fixers, who would do work on issues replacing panel or even pages that weren't considered to be usable and weren't given credit for it. And I remember seeing this in some comics. I can't remember which ones in particular. Actually, no, I do know that. I remember a Barry Windsor Smith Conan. And at that point in the early 70s, I had gotten to a point where I could recognize an artist's style really quickly. And I'm reading this Conan comic, and suddenly there's a page that is clearly the artist Gil Kane, doing his best to imitate Barry Windsor Smith, but artists have their style. And I'm like, why is Gil Kane drawing this when it's a Barry Windsor Smith creation? And apparently that's it. That I just discovered that was something that he put in place. On-staff artists who would just go in and fix pages that he deemed not acceptable to be published. Let me reduce that so I'm no longer full page. There we go. So he retired officially in 1996, or semi-retired. He continued to do covers, even doing a Superman cover. First time he had worked in DC for more than 50 years. And he was a Marvel guy. There was no question. That was his entire career. That was his career, and it was a very important one, particularly to me, but to an awful lot of comic book fans of my age, my generation. And this was very sad news. It was in '93. Obviously, it's nothing that is surprising or shocking that it happened, but it is very sad to hear. So condolences to his family. Apparently is survived by his wife, Virginia, and another son, Victor. So our condolences to them, to his friends, and to all of his fans, including people like myself out there who really considered him to be one of the top-tier classic artists in the Silver Age of comics. So rest in peace, John Romita Sr. Moving on to our next topic. Another thing that unfortunately is no longer alive is the plans to make a series based on the classic silent film from 1927 by Fritz Lang, Metropolis. This was going to be an Apple TV Plus production, and it was being made by Sam Esmail, the guy who created Mr. Robot. So the synergy of that is not lost on me, and the irony of that is not lost on me. The guy behind Mr. Robot was making a TV series about the movie that is kind of the OG robot movie. I know it's not the first. RUR, the Czech film, was the first one, and it's the one that gave us the term robots. But Metropolis was the really first movie that featured robot character as one of the primary, if not the lead character in a very, very compelling story. The problem is that they just can't afford to continue to hold off at the stage of production they were at, which was they were about to get started down in Australia, because of the writer's strike. So they had to just cancel the whole thing. It's obviously been in limbo for the last, it's now 7 weeks since the Writers Guild of America strike started, and they just can't go any further, which is really terrible. It was already cast or partially cast. Brianna Middleton was going to play the lead. Lindy Booth tapped for a role, it says here in this Deadline article. It's really sad news because Sam Esmail, Mr. Robot, was brilliant, and this movie Metropolis was a movie about the oppression of the working class and a revolution of people who are treated essentially as robots. In this case, embodied in an actual robot who is given a human form. And Mr. Robot is all about the the power dynamic of a capitalist system and how it crushes anybody who is not at a certain level within that power hierarchy. And to have him making a series based on the content in the Metropolis movie would have been just pitch perfect. It's really sad. I really wish this was going to go somewhere. I hope it does. I hope that when the Writers Guild strike gets settled, in favor of the writers, we are 100% in favor of giving the writers what they need and what they demand. But when it does get settled, I hope, because this is considered or described as a passion project for Esmail, he's been trying to do this for a long time, that he shops it somewhere else, that he tries to start it up again and get it landed somewhere else. He may have just, completely lost the energy after this huge setback, but I've got my fingers crossed that, it's going to land somewhere else, I hope. But it won't be happening in the current structure that it was going to be happening, made by the production company UCP and distributed on Apple TV Plus. It's a done deal. It's dead. So moving on, we have some news, which is very interesting in one aspect. This is, of course, Batman and Robin, the Damian Wayne version of Robin, Batman's son, from Talia al Ghul. And the reason this is up here is because this news is related to the Batman movie that is going to be the first Batman project under the new James Gunn, Peter Safran DCU version of DC Entertainment under Warner Brothers, and that is the movie Batman the Brave and the Bold. The story of which, as Gunn has said, is about Bruce, who has his son Damian as Robin, and Damian is pretty much as he is in the comic books, at least initially, actually still, an absolutely sociopathic little turd. And the news here is that Andy Muschietti, just off of success with The Flash, as a director of The Flash, has been named to direct the upcoming Batman Brave and the Bold. So Muschietti directed It and It Part 2, both of which were very well received. And that got him the job for, to do The Flash, finally, after Lord knows how many directors it went through. And if you've seen the movie, Muschietti is not the problem with The Flash. The directing is fairly solid. That's not entirely true. He's actually gone on record as defending the CGI, or the CG effects, which range from okay to absolutely god-awful terrible. Like really bad. Like the worst thing that they've put in any of the CW DC shows is better than some of the stuff that's in this movie. So I can't give him, as a director for the normal stuff that you think of people as directing, acting, shot composition, things like that. He actually does a pretty good job. So I can see why he would be given this work. I really, really hope that if it wasn't the producers that came down on him to release this thing without quality CG, or without consistently quality CG, let's put it that way, then I really hope he can turn Batman Brave and the Bold, which is going to probably rely on way less CG, into a much better movie than The Flash is. I liked a lot of things about The Flash. I understand that right out of the gate, it's a movie that not everybody is going to want to watch simply because of Ezra Miller and their problems, their issues that have yet to be resolved in many, many cases, particularly the ones that don't involve any sort of involvement by the authorities. Those ones that are literally just reports of multiple reports, mind you, believable reports of their activity with underage people. So yeah, if you don't want to, absolutely understand if you don't want to go see this movie, and there are all sorts of reasons other than that as well why you may not want to go see this movie related to quality. Muschietti and his directing isn't necessarily one of them. Although that said, he doesn't really get a great bit of work out of Ron Livingston, which is kind of surprising. Livingston, obviously most known as a comic actor for like Office Space and so on, has done some amazing dramatic work, most notably Band of Brothers, which he's in every episode. So, Livingston can do the work. Muschietti didn't exactly get it out of him, I don't think. Anyway, this isn't a review of The Flash. I actually wrote one. It's up on Nerd Caliber. Go check it out if you want. But that's this bit of news. We get to see the Andy Muschietti as the director of the upcoming Brave and the Bold, Batman Brave and the Bold. So moving on to our next topic. And of course we don't know when this is coming out. This is Gunn, when they announced this stuff, they did not put dates on many of the projects because most of them hadn't even really been written or had any director named yet, much less cast. So we don't know. Like we don't know who's going to be the Batman going forward in the DCU, the Gunn-Safran version of the DC universe. All right, moving on to our next topic. This is, of course, Ryan Reynolds as, in a Deadpool suit. This was a teaser when they first announced Deadpool 3 would, in fact, actually be happening. This was a teaser image that he put out where he was, supposedly writing it. The news is that an awful lot of Deadpool, an awful lot of MCU movies, almost all of them have been pushed back because of the Writers Guild of America strike, with the exception of Deadpool 3. Deadpool 3 has actually been moved up 6 whole months. It was supposed to drop November 8th, 2024. It will now premiere May 3rd, 2024. And then everything else is going to be pushed forward from that. Thunderbolts has been moved to December 20th, 2024. Captain America Brave New World, July 26th, 2024. Apparently the only thing that's on the roster right now for Marvel movies that is going to meet its date is the essentially already done The Marvels, which is coming out November 10th of this year, 2023. Avengers Secret Wars, the end of these next 3 phases, the end of phase 6, has been moved to May 7th, 2027. So yeah, Um, Again, we 100% support the writers in the Writers Guild of America and their strike, and we hope they get everything that they demand. It's a little tough to see these things that we've been looking forward to, get pushed out that far, but we'll deal with it. And again, that means you get to see Deadpool 6 months earlier, so that's good news. This article here on Screen Rant talks about the fact that Ryan Reynolds apparently is not allowed to improvise on set because he is one of the writers, and that's considered on-set script adjustment. Even though if he was just an actor, that would be fine because that's considered on-set improvisation. And other people have speculated, including Rob Liefeld, who co-created Deadpool, that it won't really matter because he can just do all of his quips and one-liners after the fact in post because the mask will be done in CG. So you don't actually get to see his face. He just won't be able to deliver any of the, face-to-face quips as improvisation like he has done often in the past two movies. But I think that's fine. They'll work around it. I have no problem with that. So anyway, that's it. You get to see it 6 months early. All right, this was just a crazy announcement. And I had to put this up here just because of the people that are involved. This is, of course, on your left, Malcolm McDowell, on your right, Derek Jacobi. And the news is that they are set as the two leads for an adaptation of the 19th century Gothic novel, The Vampire, the first vampire English language novel, published in 1819, almost 80 years prior to Bram Stoker's Dracula. So the novel is written by John William Polidori. The novel tells the story of Lord Ruthven, a mysterious and magnetic nobleman who captivates London society with his charismatic charm. This is quoting Deadline. Aubrey, a young Englishman, becomes infatuated with Ruthven and is drawn into a world of secrets and supernatural horror. The film will have that as sort of the meta story, but it's more about Polidori writing the story while he himself becomes infatuated with his his infatuation, Lord Byron, who becomes, as they say here, an allegory for the characters he's created for the novel The Vampire. So the movie is called The Vampire: Blood and Ink. I'm guessing, I don't know who is playing who, but I'm guessing that McDowell and Jacobi will play Ruthven and Byron. Which one is playing which, they don't say here. But I'm excited for this. I know nothing about the novel. I didn't even know it existed, frankly, until I saw this article. I'm not a vampire fiction or vampire lore kind of person. But you've got Malcolm McDowell and Derek Jacobi. And as I said in our group, you're going to have to pay the set dresser overtime because they're just going to be chewing up all the scenery. These two are top tier overactors that you want to watch overact. And I'm 100% for this. I can't wait to see it. It's being written by a brand new writer, Rosanna Hamlin, and then a playwright and director named Trisha Ward. No idea whether or not they are any good at their craft, but these two guys could literally dramatically, in a Shakespearean fashion, read a phone book if those things actually existed anymore, and it would be one of the most riveting things you've ever seen put on film. So. I'm set. I'm ready to watch this. At some point. Just announced it's happening. No idea when it's going to come out. All right, now we start with the first of a boatload of trailers. And the first is the trailer for the Netflix series adaptation of the science fiction novel series, The Three-Body Problem. That trailer, it dropped during Netflix's big Tudum event, which they held in Brazil. It's based on the trilogy by Liu Cixin. Yeah. I've been pronouncing their name in the English direction, Cixin Liu, and right here in Deadline they have it as in the Chinese Liu Cixin, and that just threw me off. So sorry about that. And I probably butchered the name. My apologies for anybody who actually speaks Chinese, which ain't me. So it's an adaptation of The Three-Body Problem, a story of humanity's first contact with an alien civilization that is set at different times during or through the Chinese Communist Party strengthening of its position as the government that leads China. So part of it takes place during the Cultural Revolution, and part of it takes place in relatively modern times. My big concern about this is that this is being made. The showrunners and the creators of this series are David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, the showrunners of Game of Thrones, who became that series' primary writers in the last 3 seasons. And we all know what happened there. They did a terrible job ending that series. Like, terrible. And weren't at all interested. You could tell. They did interviews later on where, people would ask them about, this is just ridiculous. Why could this possibly happen to this character? And they would just give the most pat, oh, well, they just didn't see that happening. Yep, okay, thanks. Thanks for writing quality stuff. They're running this. And I have not read the novels. Our team member Greg has, and Greg has said that this is... The trailer makes it look like they have taken a very slow burn, deep think kind of science fiction trilogy and turned it into kind of a, action thrill fest story. Because there's a lot of action shown in here. There's a lot of, people walking through corridors too, but there's, a lot of action. I'm afraid that they are going to do to this what the creators of Apple TV Plus's Foundation series have done to Isaac Asimov's Foundation books, which are also relatively slow burn, very, very talky novels that have some action bits in them. If you've seen the first season of Foundation, that isn't at all how you would describe Foundation. They did not do a great adaptation, and I'm afraid that Benioff and Weiss won't do this, or will do the same here to The Three-Body Problem. We'll find out in January of 2024. But if you are interested at all in that science fiction series, or the science fiction novels that it comes from, which were some of the most critically acclaimed science fiction works in the last, say, 20 years, then do check out the trailer. It's good looking, but then again, so is the Foundation. Production design was not the problem of that series, and it doesn't look like it's the problem with this one either. If it has a problem, this may be fantastic. Benioff and Weiss could absolutely surprise the hell out of me. It's happened. It happened with Watchmen, the HBO series. Damon Lindelof, I absolutely screwed the pooch on Lost, and then wrote Prometheus, and just, I was like, I was so not into anything that Damon Lindelof was doing, but it was Watchmen, and I had to watch it, and he absolutely knocked it out of the park. Watchmen is one of the best science fiction comic book type pieces of entertainment put out in the last 10 years. From this guy whose work I absolutely despise. So, they could do it. It could happen. maybe they're interested in this, and they were absolutely not interested in finishing off Game of Thrones. We'll have to see. January 2024 is when we will. All right, this just completely took me right, came out of left field and hit me right in the side of the head, took me by surprise. This is a still from the very last movie that Carrie Fisher made, or that at least will be released. I'm not sure in what order it was actually filmed, but this is a movie called Wonderwell, and I guarantee I'm going to screw that up and call it Wonderwall at some point, and I apologize to that and to all Oasis fans, but more importantly, to all Carrie Fisher fans. But the movie is a fantasy movie that stars Fisher, young actress Kira Millward, and Rita Ora. And the story is basically that Millward plays a girl, Violet, who is in Italy with her family, and her parents and her older sister, who has been a model who has been selected to be the face of a world-renowned designer, Yana, who's played by Rita Ora, face of the fashion label of Yana. And so the family travels to this medieval village in Tuscany for a photo shoot, and Violet wanders off into the forest and meets Hazel, played by Carrie Fisher, who may or may not be a witch, but absolutely introduces her to this weird other world that she gets through apparently a well, and sets up a conflict in which apparently Rita Ora's character, Yana, is sort of the opposite of Hazel, and as Yana puts it, essentially we had a deal. You had the woods, I had the town, and the girl is clearly from the town, meaning from society or civilization. So it looks really interesting. It is going to get a very short theatrical or very limited theatrical release in the US June 23rd. So coming right up. Then it will get a digital release. It doesn't say here in this Deadline article how it's going to get that digital release. I'm assuming that means that it's going to be on demand somewhere, like you can rent it on Amazon or through Redbox or whatever. Assuming those things still exist. As opposed to hitting a streaming service. So it isn't exactly going to, even with the name Carrie Fisher involved, it's not getting this huge theatrical release. So that tells me a little bit about what they assume the quality of the movie is, or the scale anyway, and what they anticipate the demand for it. I think they're really undershooting the demand of Trekkies. Wow. All right. Anybody in the comments, feel free to jump in and just absolutely lambaste me for making that mistake. Star Wars fans who would do anything to watch anything Carrie Fisher is in, particularly now that she has passed. So we'll see what this looks like coming up at the end of this week. All right, our next trailer. This is finally, we get to see some information and a trailer about Babylon 5. The Babylon 5 animated movie made by Warner Brothers. It's called Babylon 5: The Road Home. So we talked about this when the information about it first dropped by J. Michael Straczynski, the original creator of Babylon 5, back a couple of weeks ago, where it just came out of left field. Nobody knew this thing even existed, and it was apparently all done to the extent that this is coming out on August 15th. The movie tells the story of Sheridan getting involved in some sort of time problem where he gets, as they put it here, whipsawed through multiple timelines and alternate realities, including one where Babylon 5 lost the Shadow War. All of the original cast members, and we mentioned this again, who are still alive, are coming back to voice their roles, including Bruce Boxleitner as Sheridan, Claudia Christian as Ivanova, Peter Jurassic as Londo and Bill Mumy as Lanier. Tracy Scoggins as Lockley, Patricia Tallman as Lyda Alexander. But there will be new actors, voice actors playing Delenn, G'Kar, Garibaldi, Dr. Franklin, Zathras, and the original Babylon 5 commander, Jeffrey Sinclair, which tells you that obviously, yeah, he's going to be bouncing around through different timelines where people that in the Babylon 5 timeline are no longer alive are alive. And yeah, it is, you know, Multiverse of Madness. It is No Way Home. It is The Flash. It, you know, everybody's doing these alternate timeline stories. That doesn't mean that it's, I mean, there was a time when comic books did tons of those. There was a time when TV series were, you know, there were a bunch of TV series based on that idea, from Sliders to Quantum Leap and others. You know, it's a thing that comes and goes in popularity, and it's having its moment now. If you can produce a good one that is interesting and different, like No Way Home, then you will probably have a success. I'm thinking, since this is written by Straczynski, nobody knows the characters and the stories like the man who created the original series. I'm thinking this is going to be a pretty good one. We will be able to find out when it hits the various streaming stuff, like I said, August 15th, and not streaming stuff, digital on demand. So it will stream on Amazon, Apple TV, Vudu, and YouTube. You can pre-order it from almost all of those for about $20. Amazon UK is already listing Blu-ray discs for it. So August 15th, that's when you can see it, if you're waiting to get your next fix of Babylon 5. All right, this trailer I loved. I absolutely loved, aside from the fact that it exists, which I love. It's wonderfully innovative, funny, I mean, hilariously funny, creative, and that is the trailer for the animated movie Nimona. So Nimona stars Chloe Grace Moretz as the title character. It stars Riz Ahmed as the tall, thin, knight-looking guy in this image, Ballister Blackheart. The story is Ballister Blackheart has been framed for the killing of the queen and becomes sort of a reluctant villain. Nimona is very keen on being a villain based on how she has been treated. It turns out she is a shapeshifter and is described as gender non-conforming. The story is very much one about gender identity, about sexual identity. It is created, it was a graphic novel originally by N.D. Stevenson. N.D. Stevenson is transmasculine and bigender, goes by he, him pronouns. Also created the most recent She-Ra revival. This was originally, when the graphic novel came out in 2015, this was picked up immediately by 20th Century Fox and then given to its subsidiary Blue Sky Animation. Blue Sky worked it until about, reports are, it's not official, it was about 75% done. And then after the Disney purchase, so now Disney owned Fox Movies and Television and Blue Sky, Disney just shut down Blue Sky entirely. And there have been a lot of reports that it was in part over Blue Sky's insistence that they make this movie exactly the way the author intended it. And there was a lot of pushback over the LGBTQ plus themes from the higher-ups. This has not been confirmed by anybody at Disney. This is all rumor coming from people who were at Blue Sky, who said that that was a thing, but didn't name names about anybody who may have made those statements. So, and it certainly doesn't fit with, well, actually, it does kind of fit with previous Disney CEOs' attitudes towards gender issues, which is one of the reasons why Bob Chapek is back as the CEO of Disney. Um, so, all of that aside, go watch this trailer. The animation is really cool. Chloe Grace Moretz is hilarious. She is obviously just having so much fun with this character. The character is a hoot. All of the characters are a hoot. I'm really looking forward to. The world is the weirdest science fantasy. I mean, I guess it makes sense. It's kind of like the world of She-Ra or even He-Man. It is swords and magic and computers and flying craft, and it is really interestingly out there science fantasy, or fantasy science fiction, or however you want to meld those two things together. But it looks really cool. I will absolutely be watching it. I think it is. It's all the way down here, June 30th. It will land on Netflix. Go check out the trailer, folks. Of all of the things here, and there are a lot of really, really cool, interesting things, including Kraven and including One Piece. This is the one that I think everybody should watch this trailer. You're just going to, just from the trailer, you're just going to laugh your butt off. So go check it out. Speaking of the Kravens, this is a screenshot from the trailer for Kraven the Hunter, which finally dropped. It is a red band trailer, which means it is in keeping with the R-rated tone of the movie. It is a violent and bloody trailer. And it really shows what they're trying to do here with this Kraven story. This article in Variety, the headline is Kraven the Hunter trailer, Aaron Taylor Johnson stars in bloody Spider-Man villain origin story. Well, I guess that's accurate in that in the Spider-Man comics, he's a Spider-Man villain. It's very clear here that they're trying to turn him into an anti-hero, a la Morbius. And in both cases, both Morbius has become more of an anti-hero since in the comics, since his original introduction. And Kraven has, in fact, worked a little bit with the heroes of the Marvel comic book universe, but only because their interests happen to align in certain comic book storylines. In the comics, Kraven is a villain. 100%, full stop, no question. And it's very clear here that Aaron Taylor Johnson's version of Sergei Kravinoff of Kraven is an anti-hero who kills to get back at the criminals of his father's terrible criminal enterprise. The action looks really good. I really like Aaron Taylor Johnson as an actor anyway. Go watch Bullet Train. My God, he's amazing in that. But this just, I'll watch it, of course. It doesn't sell me. It looks interesting. And that's it. Russell Crowe plays his father. Fred Hetchinger plays his brother, who is Dimitri, who is also a chameleon. Although you don't get to see any of that. Alessandro Nivola plays the Rhino, and you do get to see how they're at least initially dealing with that. The Rhino is a biological enhancement alter being, not a guy in a super suit or a guy in a giant mech suit or anything like that. Again, it looks well made. It looks okay. And that's pretty much, Ariana DeBose is in it as Calypso. Like I said, Russell Crowe as Kraven's father. who is pretty much responsible for turning Kraven into the killer that he is. October is when this drops. October, come on, it's in here. October 6th is when we get to see this. I'm looking forward to a next trailer. You know, there'll be another trailer later on in the summer. This one just didn't really sell me any more than the concept of seeing Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kraven. That alone sells me on this. But this didn't do anything beyond that. All right, time to get into our last one. And before we do that, I need to wet my whistle. This is a screenshot from, finally, the actual trailer, not just a teaser, for the upcoming Netflix live-action series adaptation of the manga One Piece. This is, Luffy, obviously, well, not obviously, you can't tell that, but, touching the actual figurehead at the front of the ship going merry. It looks really good. I am not a One Piece fan. The anime has been going on way too long. I can't watch an anime that has hundreds of episodes. I'm not going to read manga that has thousands of chapters. But I have so many friends who are so absolutely fanatically devoted to One Piece that it's just I can't not know an awful lot about it. And they are pretty much to a person absolutely thrilled about how this is turning out. And we've talked about it when they first showed some of the production stuff. The fact that like all of the ships, almost all of the ships, are actually built sets. Built in South Africa. What you're seeing there, let me bring that shot back up. That's a set. I'm assuming they've probably added some CG elements somewhere. There's probably a blue screen or a green screen in there somewhere, but that's a set. They did a fantastic job with making the cartoonish, fantastic images realistic while still sort of cartoonish, without having to go to the gritty realism thing. The only problem I have with that is a lot of it is washed in this, like 1990s or early 2000s, sepia tone, brown wash stuff. And I'm hoping they get rid of an awful lot of that, because those scenes that aren't really punch up the color the way the covers and the special color splash pages in the manga do, and the way the anime does. I think that the characterization of the actors, they've all nailed it. I'm going to absolutely butcher this name, but Luffy is played, and I know people like to pronounce it Luffy. I'm going to go with a short Luffy. Is played by Iñaki Godoy. Absolutely wonderful in it. All of the people, the actors for Nami, the actor for Sanji, the actor for Zoro and Usopp, 100% just nails everything I've seen. Because I've watched an awful lot of bits from this, watching like my mother's basement's many anime episodes on YouTube about One Piece and manga episodes about One Piece. So I've seen an awful lot of the animation of these characters and their Japanese voice actors. These folks look fantastic. I'm looking forward to this. This will be the one thing where I finally get into One Piece. And I think an awful lot of people are looking forward to it too, based on, again, my reaction in my social media, my friends groups, on Facebook and in Twitter and or so on, are just falling all over themselves about this for the most part. There are plenty of people out there who is, this little bit of CGI looks terrible. Okay. Fine. It comes out August 31st. They've still got time to, tweak some of the stuff. Don't worry about it. But I'm looking forward to it. I really like the way this looks, and I really think that this will get me into One Piece. Maybe it'll get me into reading the manga. Maybe it'll get me into watching the anime. I don't know. But I think for it to succeed and for it to get what most people are assuming will be 3 seasons that cover 3 large arcs of the story, it's got to do what Scott Pilgrim did. Scott Pilgrim is, of course, based on a comic book where the art is a very sort of anime-like style, very large bug eyes and so on. And the movie, the live-action adaptation, took the inherent silliness of an awful lot of that and just put it out there with everybody just accepting it. The cast literally went with the craziest things that were happening. When a guy has psychic powers because he's vegan, no, everybody buys it 100%. Just, it's the way things are. Guy shows up in the, interrupts a concert, floating in the air, and summons his demon hipster chicks. Nope, nobody questions it. It's just the way things are. They have to do that with this. The absolutely most cartoonish, outlandish, silly elements have to be just presented as straightforward as the more grounded live action elements, and everybody in the cast has to just go, yep, that's just the way it is. No snarkiness, no snarkiness related to that stuff. Boy, doesn't that look stupid. None of that. It's got to be just like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Yep, this is just the way the world is, accept it. If that works, it may become a big enough hit that they may get multiple seasons out of this. Or it may succumb to the Netflix curse of, hey, you didn't do Stranger Things numbers, so sorry, you're one and done. I hope that's not the case for all the One Piece fans out there. Anyway, that's our show, folks. Finishing up with our plea to go check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Holy crap, we almost went an hour. All right, patreon.com/nerdcaliber is where you can find our Patreon page. We'd love to have you as a patron. 3 tiers, $2 for the lowest tier. It helps us get to more cons coming up. We'll be going to more cons coming up. We'll be at Kineticon. Where else are we going? I don't know where else. I know we've got other cons happening. We will be at Kineticon. We will be at Fan Expo Boston. We will be at Pop Cult Anime Con, Dragon Con, Colossal Con East, an awful lot of stuff going through the summer and into the early fall. So we'll see you at one of those cons. If we do, please do stay safe. Please wear your mask when you're in a crowd. New variants are popping up now in Thailand and the Philippines. The one in Thailand is apparently really moving through the population very quickly. Please do stay safe, folks. On that note, we'll see you at an upcoming convention or next week's show. Good night and bye-bye.